We celebrate Harlem Globetrotters Day every January 7th, and we are all pumped up to honor one of the greatest teams in the history of basketball. Do you know that the Harlem Globetrotters basketball team is one of 10 basketball teams ever to make the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame? They broke the color barrier in the NBA and the gender barrier in the Olympics. This team has given us so much entertainment while doing what they do best, playing basketball, and we are happy to be celebrating them today. Exposure to the Harlem Globetrotters was a Saturday morning cartoon produced by Hanna-Barbera and CBS Productions featuring animated versions of players from that era of the basketball team of the same name. The show team members featured fictionalized versions of historical Globetrotters, Meadowlark Lemon, Freddie Curly Neal, Hubert Geese Osby, J.C. Gibb Gibson, Bobby Joe Mason, and Paul Pablo Robertson, all in animated form, alongside their fictional bus driver and manager Granny and their dog mascot Dribbles. The series worked to a formula where the team travels somewhere and typically gets involved in a local conflict that leads to one of the Globetrotters proposing a basketball game to settle the issue. To ensure the Globetrotters' defeat, the villains rigged the contest. However, before the second half of the contest, the team always finds a way to even the odds, become all but invincible, and win the game. It was a silly cartoon of the 70s that didn't last very long. The unanimated Harlem Globetrotters are an American exhibition basketball team. They combine athleticism. How the hell do you say that? Athleticism. I don't know. Theater and comedy in their style of play. Created in 1926 by Tommy Brookins in Chicago, Illinois, the team adopted the name Harlem because its connotations as a major African-American community. Over the years, they have played more than 26,000 exhibition games in 124 countries and territories, mostly against deliberately ineffective opponents, such as the Washington Generals and the New York Nationals. The team's signature song is Brother Bones' whistled version of Sweet Georgia Brown, and their mascot is an anthropomorphized globe named Globey. The team is owned by the Hershen Family Entertainment. The game of basketball was developed in 1891 by James Naismith, a Canadian-American gymnast teacher in Springfield, U.S., and became one of the most popular sports in the world. The game consists of two teams of 5 separate players on each side vying against each other to shoot a basketball into the opponent's hoop while preventing them from shooting through their own hoop. Abe Saperstein founded the Harlem Globetrotters basketball team in 1926. The Globetrotters originated on the south side of Chicago, where all the original players were raised. The Globetrotters began as the Savoy Big Five, S-A-V-O, I'm not doing words in this commentary, S-A-V-O-Y Big Five, one of the premier attractions of the Savoy Ballroom, oh my God, opened in January of 1928, a basketball team of black American players that played exhibitions before dances due to declining dance attendance. In 1928, several players left the team in a dispute. That autumn, those players, led by Tommy Brookins, formed a team called the Globetrotters and toured southern Illinois that spring. Abe Saperstein became involved with the team as its manager and promoter. By 1929, Saberstein was touring Illinois and Iowa with his basketball team called the New York Harlem Globetrotters. Saberstein selected the name Harlem because it then considered the center of Black American culture, and the name Globetrotter to mythologize the team's international venues. The team embodies qualities of human persistence and creativity. Founded when professional basketball was exclusively for white players, they decided to take basketball to another level, infusing comedy and entertainment. Over the decades, they won over 27,000 games. The Globetrotters were perennial participants in the World Professional Basketball Tournament, winning in 1940 in a heavily attended matchup. A few years later, the 1948 Globetrotters-Lakers game. The Globetrotters made headlines when they beat one of the best white basketball teams in the country, the Minneapolis Lakers. The Globetrotters continue to easily win games due to Harlem monopolizing the entire talent pool of the best black basketball players in the country. Once one of the most famous teams in the country, the Globetrotters were eventually eclipsed by the rise of the National Basketball Association, particularly when the NBA teams began fielding black players in the 1950s. In 1950, Harlem Globetrotter Chuck Cooper became the first black player to be drafted into the NBA by Boston, and teammate Nat Sweetwater Clifton became the first black player to sign an NBA contract when the New York Knicks purchased his contract from the Globetrotters for $12,500 in equivalent of 2021. That's $141,000. Harlem got $10,000 and Clifton got $2,500. I don't know. Think of that as you will. The Globetrotters gradually worked comic routines into their act, a direction the team had credited to Reese Goose Tatum, who joined in 1941 and eventually became known more for entertainment than sports. The Globetrotters' acts often featured incredible coordination and skillful handling of one or more basketballs, such as passing or juggling balls between players, balancing or spinning balls on their fingers, and making unusually difficult shots. In 1952, the Globetrotters invited Louis Red Klotz to create a team to accompany them on their tours. This team, the Washington Generals, who also played under various other names, became the Globetrotters' primary opponents. The Generals are effectively stooges for the Globetrotters, when the Globetrotters handily defeating them in thousands of games. A fact I had no idea about until researching the Globetrotters was a movie was produced revolving around the team. The Harlem Globetrotters is a 1951 sports drama film about the famous African-American basketball team, the Harlem Globetrotters, released by Columbia Pictures. The film stars Thomas Gomez, Bill Walker, Dorothy Dandridge, Angela Clark, and Peter M. Thompson. And the film premiered on television on Turner Classic Movies on May 29th of 2012. And they were also featured in a film titled Go Man Go in 1954. Go Man Go, American sports film directed by James Wong Howe, starring Dane Clark, Sidney Poitier, Ruby Dee, Patricia Breslin, the Harlem Globetrotters, and Slim Gaillard. Clark plays Abe Seberstein, the organizer of the Globetrotters. Poitier's character is Inman Jackson, the team's showboating center. We're currently seeing a scene from that movie. The film tracks the Globetrotters from humble beginnings through a triumph over a Major League Basketball team as they struggle to overcome racial discrimination. Actual Harlem Globetrotters players portray the team in basketball action throughout the picture, and the friendship between Saberstein and Jackson and their wives is an important storyline. In May 1967, New York City-based Metro Media announced that it would acquire the Globetrotters for $1 million, but the deal was never completed, and the team was later sold to George N. Gillette Jr., who soon formed a new company called Globetrotter Communications in 1968. 9 years after the company's attempted acquisition, in 1976, Metro Media announced that it would reacquire the Globetrotters for $11 million from Globetrotter Communications. Many famous basketball players have played for the Globetrotters, greats such as Wee Willie Gardner, Connie the Hawk Hawkins, Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain, and Nat Sweetwater Clifton later joined the NBA. The Globetrotters signed their first female player, Olympic gold medalist Lynette Woodard, in 1985. Because nearly all of the team's players have been black, and as a result of the buffoonery involved in many of the Globetrotters skits, they drew some criticism during the civil rights era. The players were accused by some civil rights advocates of Tomming for Abe, a reference to Uncle Tom and owner Abe Silverstein. However, prominent civil rights activist Jesse Jackson, who would later be named an honorary Globetrotter, came to their defense by stating, "I think they've been a positive influence. They did not show blacks as stupid. On the contrary, they were shown as superior." And there's always assholes out there that have to make a big deal out of nothing. But anyways, in 1986, as part of the spin-off of Metro Media's television stations to News Corporation in the 20th Century Fox Film Studio, the company sold the Globetrotters and the Ice Capades to the Minneapolis-based International Broadcasting Corporation, owners of KTAB-TV in Abilene, Texas, and controlled by Thomas Scallon for $13 million. In 1993, former Globetrotters player Manny Jackson purchased the team from the International Broadcasting Corporation, which was on the verge of bankruptcy. In 1995, Orlando Antiquillo became the first Hispanic player on the team. Sorry, Orlando, if I mispronounced your last name. He was the first non-black player on the Globetrotters roster since Bob Karstens played with the squad in 1942 and 1943. While parts of a modern exhibition game are pre-planned, the games themselves are not fixed. Whether opponents do not interfere with the Globetrotters' hijinks while on the defense, they play a serious game when in possession of the ball, and about 20 to 30% of the game is real. This once led to an infamous defeat at the hands of the Washington Generals in 1971 to the distress of the watching crowd after the Globetrotters lost track of a big lead with their tricks and Generals hit a game-winning buzzer beater. It reminds me of, wrestling as far as I'm concerned, but that's just my personal opinion. Today, the Harlem Globetrotters are still going strong, and you can check out their latest happenings by visiting the link you see right here. What is today? It's Harlem Globetrotters Day on January 7th. It's a day to honor and remember the achievements of this great basketball team and all other teams worldwide. So until next time.
Yes, that was that cat, all right.